Hey, what's up everyone? So Krita was the first painting software that I ever used. In this video, I will tell you about my opinions on Krita and if it's worth your time. And I will be making constant comparisons with Photoshop because it is the industry standard. The first thing that you should know is that Krita is a free open source software. So that's already a pretty big plus point. I mean, Photoshop is literally around $20 a month. So when it comes to pricing, nothing is beating Krita. And just because it's free does not mean that it lacks quality. Krita is a very powerful software and it provides you with every tool that you would ever need to create a professional looking art. Krita has a very simple and a very easy to understand interface. If you are a complete beginner to digital art, then it can be a bit confusing at first, but it shouldn't take you much effort or time to get used to it. And in some ways, Krita's interface is similar to Photoshop. So if someday you decided to move on to Photoshop, it shouldn't be that difficult. Or if you have been using Photoshop and want to move to Krita, then it shouldn't be a problem either. Now let's talk about the brushes in Krita. I mean, brushes are definitely the most important part of any digital painting software, because you can't really paint without a brush. Krita has a very solid brush engine. The brush strokes are accurate and I haven't really noticed any kind of lag or any other problem with Krita's brushes. Krita also comes with a bunch of pre-installed brushes customized for different needs. There are pencil brushes, charcoal brushes, watercolor brushes, oil paint brushes and many more, which is way more than what Photoshop provides. Now, brush customization is where I thought that Photoshop is easier to understand. In Krita, there are just too many customization options. Now, you could think that more options means better, right? But no, it doesn't really feel like more options are actually giving me more control. Rather, it just makes things more confusing. I mean, there are some settings whose purpose I don't even understand. And somehow, it just felt more limiting to me. In Photoshop, I use this particular brush preset as a mixture brush for blending, and it works really well. And I wanted to create the same brush in Krita, and it kinda worked, but it wasn't satisfactory. And I think it's because Krita is missing one setting, which is wetness. In Photoshop, when you select the mixture brush tool, you get this wetness and load setting, which Krita does not have. So I can't really use my favorite blending brush in Krita. Talking about blending, you do have some blending brushes in Krita that works really well. Now let me talk about some minor inconveniences that I felt moving from Photoshop to Krita. I think the first inconvenience for me was the limited brush palette. In Photoshop, if you right click your mouse, a pop-up containing all your brushes will appear and you can select your brush from that pop-up. And I extensively use this in Photoshop. Good thing is that a pop-up does appear in Krita, but at once you can only choose from an option of 10 brushes. It is nothing major, but it is still an inconvenience. Another inconvenience for me is that the eraser tool, the smudge tool and the mixture brush tool are not given as tools but are given as brushes, which means there are no shortcut keys for them. You do have a shortcut key for eraser, but the problem is that it's like a toggle button. That means if you press E, your selected brush will now act like an eraser, and press E again to turn the eraser off. If you want a specific brush preset as an eraser, then you have to select that brush first and then press E, which is kinda inconvenient. All these are minor inconveniences that does affect your speed a little bit, but if you can get used to it, then I think it's completely fine. Krita is still a very solid painting software that can easily be an alternative for Photoshop. And just so you know, Krita is a 2-in-1 software. It also has a workspace for animation. So if you are interested in animation, you can definitely check out Krita. So my final verdict is that if for some reason you can't get an access to Photoshop and want a solid painting software, then you should definitely check out Krita. So this is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.